Hello and welcome to ESPN FC Live. A special hello if you're a Spurs fan, because you'll have enjoyed what you've seen over the last couple of hours. If you're a Manchester United fan and you're tuned in, well, we're going to try and give you answers as to why it finished Man United 0, Spurs 3 at Old Trafford, and what happens next. Alongside Shaka, Hislop, and Shaq, I wanted to find a way to put this into context. This is the best that I've come up with as a result of this result. Manchester United are 4 points clear of the relegation zone. Spurs are 3 points adrift of a Champions League spot. If that doesn't set alarm bells ringing, even though we're early in the season, for United, for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and for Erik ten Hag and everyone connected with the football club, then what will?
I'm not sure. And you started by saying we'll try to find answers for Manchester United fans, and I'm not sure we can. Outside of what we've offered all season long, I've said from the get-go that I didn't think Erik ten Hag was the right manager for Manchester United. That winning the FA Cup, I think, maybe papered over a lot of the cracks for Manchester United, and I just didn't see this lasting for any measure of time, and so it's proven. I can, as we record this, listen, it's right after the game. I know what Erik ten Hag's post-game press conference will be. He'll point to the sending off as being pivotal. It wasn't, and that but Manchester United fans, or more to the point, the board have to continue to trust in the process. Now, exactly what that process is, exactly why we continue to trust in whatever we've seen of this process over the last 18 months, shall we call it, I'm not sure. But right now, my concern is that it gets worse before it gets any better for Manchester United. Porto, Villa, Brentford, and then Fenerbahce to come. That's not pleasant reading. You can see saying that when you're playing this poorly, you struggle to see where the next result is going to come from.
It's very difficult to say that winning a trophy is potentially one of the worst things that could have happened to the football club, especially beating your rivals, because no Man United fan would surely have swapped that. But it probably kept Erik ten Hag in a job. Are we now at the stage it's when and not if he continues as Manchester United manager? Because that prior to the Bruno Fernandes sending off, and I know it finished 3-0, that was an embarrassment of a display.
Absolutely. This is a win. And while in the past Manchester United could have pointed, and maybe rightly so, to injuries as being pivotal, I thought maybe Højlund for Xerxes, but other than that, this was as strong an 11 that Manchester United can put out, regardless. And while, yes, I thought the Bruno Fernandes sending off was a little harsh. Listen, first of all, in today's game, you catch somebody that high up the leg, there's a very good chance you're going to see red. But I thought it was as a result of a Bruno Fernandes slip. His leg gets extended. I'm not sure that there's that much force. So maybe a yellow would have been a fair punishment. But even so, even before the sending off, if Son had started instead of Werner, we'd be talking 3-0 at that point. At that point, that Manchester United are reduced to 10 men. So, I am sure Erik ten Hag, if not Manchester United fans, will point to the sending off. It was not determining as to the result of this one. With your strongest squad, again, maybe Højlund for Xerxes the only change, but that's as good as an 11 you're going to put out. And when we talk about Tottenham Hotspur, let's be honest, Son for Werner is in no measure a like for like. So I'm not sure. Again, you'll grab at excuses, but I'm not sure how many of them are really that true.
I'm always cognizant with something like this, that, the headline, Erik ten Hag, Man United, horrible today. Yeah, Spurs didn't help at all as far as Man United were concerned, because they were excellent. And you said if Son had been playing, I mean, they could have been 3-0 up regardless of that. So they deserve just as much praise. Yes, Man United. Yes, Erik ten Hag's the headline, but that's 4 unbeaten now that Spurs against the United.
And more to the point, post the North London derby and the criticism for Brendan Johnson in particular, he just can't stop scoring. Had got himself another one today, hit a post. I think it was still 11v11 when he hit the post as well.
It was because he was played by Kulusevski.
Yeah, so he hit a post. Solanke, again, after a slow start from him. Strikers finish from a set piece. A lot to like about this version of Spurs. If I offer any criticism, and yes, the criticism for Spurs is very different from Manchester United, as per your introduction. Right now, Man U are closer to the relegation places. Spurs is chasing those Champions League places. So it's a different measure altogether. So if there's any criticism for Spurs today, is that it took them as long as it did, albeit 90 seconds in the 30-second, wherever it was, into the second half, to really put this game away. This game should have been dead and buried on 35 minutes. And we've seen it from Spurs in during the course of the season. The Leicester game comes first to mind, where you have so many chances. Away to Newcastle is another example. You have as many chances as you do, but just don't take them, and that comes back to haunt you. That wasn't the case today, but I think that would be the overarching message from Postecoglou to his charges, that when we're dominating games, we have to take our chances. Because even at 2-0 and down to 10 men, Manchester United had a flurry of chances, couple of shouts for handball in the box. I go with the referee and the VAR on those. But it just could have been different, I think, is the message from Postecoglou. We've got to kill these games off when we've got our foot on the opponent's throat, so to speak.
Okay, there were two main incidents in the first half that I want to get to. The opening goal inside of 3 minutes. Now, I suppose we live in a blame culture. You kind of have to. When Mickey van de Ven picks it up and is like, oh, I'll keep going. And he keeps going. Now, I want to get into Bruno Fernandes for the second incident, because obviously he got sent off. And he was one that kind of tried to chase and kind of gave up. But what's Diogo Dalot doing? I mean, he's the left back. And Brennan Johnson's he's looking around going, where is everyone? Van de Ven, assist, Brennan Johnson, 1-0. So many people at fault for Man United here.
Yeah, I think when you get yourself in that position, there's a knock-on effect. And again, I put this down to just a lack of organization. First of all, I think Rashford kind of overplays it, if not miscontrols it. Garnacho has got his back turned, and all of a sudden, Manchester United are give the ball away in transition, and nobody kind of is able to pick up or fall into place. And okay, granted, it falls to the feet of Van de Ven, who's a centre back, but easily the quickest man on the park, quickest player in the league, and nobody can keep up with him. He just drifts past Ugarte. I'm trying to think of who else comes to him. De Ligt comes to him in the box and just blows by him. Nobody's able to get themselves in a position to deal with Van de Ven. And then this imbalance from Manchester United that started with the giveaway. Nobody's able to find any kind of a position, and Brendan Johnson is just tapping into an empty net, and that just speaks to a lack of organization, a lack of awareness as much as anything, and that from Manchester United at this level, you don't expect, and I say Manchester United, and it's more what you expect of Manchester, or maybe what I expect and remember of Manchester United.
Yeah, because you said on Friday, the fear factor is gone. From facing Man United, from going to Old Trafford, it doesn't exist anymore.
What really worried Spurs today? As I mentioned, Manchester United had
the rain,
maybe 10 or 15 minutes at one point in the second half, even though they were down to 10 men. And now, again, I've said this before, and I'll say it every single time. Regardless of who you are, regardless of who your opponent is, they are going to have 10 or 15 minutes that things just go for them. and you have to manage that 10 or 15 minutes. When we're talking Manchester United at Old Trafford, my experience is they're going to have 80 or 85 minutes that are going to go for them. But that being said, outside of that, today nothing troubled Spurs. Garnacho hit the outside of an upright with a very good chance, but again, that came in that spell for Manchester United. But there was nothing. Now I tell you that Vicario did make one very good save.
Excellent save. Yes.
So to give him his credit, but outside of that, I don't remember Vicario doing much. He took a cross in the second half, but nothing really to speak of.
Bruno Fernandes gets sent off. Now, I think the consensus from what I've heard so far from you and from others listening to it on the way back from work this morning was that it's probably a yellow, but he's been given a red. Okay, forget what he's been given.
It's definitely a yellow.
Right. So this is the point. Forget what he's been given here. Okay, you watch that incident. Here's Law 12 because I'm a geek and I know about these things. Careless is a foul. Reckless is a yellow card. Endangering the safety of an opponent / serious foul play is a red. So you probably think, look, it's a yellow and it's like, don't be so stupid. But I want to play devil's advocate here. Okay, he slips. There's no doubt about that. But when you slip, your instinct when you slip is not, oh, look, there's another player. Let's raise my leg here. I can see why it's been given. I would have probably given a yellow as well. But there's not enough for VAR to overturn it here. Why does he need to raise his leg after he slips?
Yeah, listen, I think Bruno Fernandes realizes that he's going to be late on Maddison and is just trying to stop the play. So he's going to trip him and then loses his footing. And that right leg that he intended to keep low in an effort just to trip Maddison and just stop the play and take his booking, just kind of, he catches Maddison higher than he thought. Now, I'm trying to offer an excuse kind of using my own experiences of the game when I played. I will say this. If we put that as a red card up against some of the other cards that we've seen this season, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue that that's a red up against some of the other calls that we've seen this season, or maybe if you want to go back into last. We've seen these given more and more in today's football. For me, it still lands as a little soft.
Yeah, and look, it's subjective, right? Because Spurs fans looking at it through kind of blue and white tinted glasses will go, no, it was a red card. It'll be interesting to see what the ex-refs and whatever say. I think the majority would be, okay, I suppose that's the right decision if a yellow had come out. But the bottom line is, and this is interesting, because when I was coming back from work this morning, I was listening to the match.
While we say, just to interject, and I'm sure Manchester United fans will protest this, but we're, a week removed from Lisandro Martinez's ridiculous two-footed jump-in.
Yeah,
so, I made that, I say that, and what made me think of that is we were this week discussing, what was it, the advisory panel, wherever is the, adjudicatory panel that said, it was a ridiculous challenge, but it's a yellow. I mean, that was so much worse than Bruno Fernandes.
Right.
Yeah. For me, that was a straight red. So,
but no wonder fans get confused.
Exactly, and that's my point. And while Arsenal fans will be screaming about, albeit second yellows for Declan Rice and Trossard and how shocked those were. Why am I saying that this was akin to that? How can you see what Lisandro Martinez did and see this and think that is worse? So we're really as a default, I go back to how the game was played when I played, albeit a long time ago, and that for me just again lands a little bit soft. Just while I thought of it.
I get that, and I don't want to fall into the trap of this is all about Man United because Spurs went to Old Trafford and won by 3, could have won by more. We will be ending with them.
Spurs,
we're looking at goals. 2-3. They did. But what I was saying is when I was driving home from work today and I was listening to the game on the radio, and the commentator made an interesting point. He said, could this be another game where Erik Ten Hag has got an excuse? because Bruno got sent off and maybe he shouldn't have been. And he's had excuses in the past that have been timely, whether it's been injuries or X, Y, and Z. There always seems to be some reason why something has happened to get Man United in the situation that they are in. But we have to look at it here that prior to the red card, Manchester United were absolutely abject. So what did Spurs do well prior to the red card? And obviously as a game as a whole, what did Ange Postecoglou get so right today that made Manchester United's performance so wrong?
Listen, I thought Spurs didn't have to do an awful lot right. Spurs just had to be organised. Spurs just had to take their chances. And I thought Manchester United shot themselves in the foot. You kind of know what you're expecting out of Spurs now. And credit to, and again, I keep bringing up Johnson's name because of that criticism and how good he's looked since. Again, he took a chance from a very tight angle, leaving the goalkeeper with no chance. Scored one, hit the post with another. And I just thought that his response since that North London derby has been something to admire, given the criticism, given the abuse that he was on the end of. And now we question whether Dominic Solanke was the striker to really spark a top four finish for Spurs. I still have my reservations, but he got himself on the end of, as I mentioned, a set piece. And all of a sudden, things are just starting to tick along nicely. And now Postecoglou has had his critics. He's had to endure criticism himself. I think the bar, given the start to last season, was set a little bit high, which we did not see early on in the season. And all of a sudden, it's starting to tick along very nicely. So we see how Spurs continue to improve, given the impacts and the improvements that we've seen from the two players I just mentioned. Now, I still think that there's a lot for Spurs to do, certainly to with their own organisation, their defensive line, how they cope under pressure. You can't always play the same way for them to continue to improve, but it's a step in the right direction for them.
Remember a few years ago, Shaq, when we had the Serie A rights, and there was a kid called Kulusevski playing for Parma. He was basically a fast winger, played with his head down, had a lot of talent, but you thought there's something there, but he's raw. He was outstanding today, and he's playing in a slightly different role, isn't he? He's withdrawn a wee bit more, but with the ability to push forward in a more central area as well as support Brennan Johnson. He got the second goal for Spurs, and all round I thought he was outstanding.
Yeah, listen, I think he plays in that little space in behind Solanke, and that's, I think, one of the benefits of having that out-and-out striker, somebody to lead the line, and you kind of take your position off of him. And he found a lot of success with it. And from a Manchester United perspective, who play with a back four, and then you've got Bruno Fernandes, who pushes higher up, and then it was Kobe Mainoo and Ugarte kind of as these sitting defenders. Mainoo pushed up a little bit more. There's that space in behind that sometimes, you're asking a lot of Ugarte to fill in when you have somebody like Kulusevski who plays off the back of Solanke, so to speak. And he found a lot of space for it. And then he got a lot of good support and from Brendan Johnson one side, from Werner on the other. Johnson was always there, always available for it, as is Werner with his pace, which is, despite his seeming lack of confidence and maybe lack of a finishing touch as well. When you play up against that kind of pace, you have to play differently. And that's allowed Kulusevski to operate in that little pocket really effectively. So I think Spurs are coming along nicely. I still don't think they're anywhere close to challenging who I still think are the best three teams in the league in Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City. But they're certainly making inroads on, I'll say, an Aston Villa who dropped points today but finished top four last season. And the other likely contenders for that top four finish, I include the likes of Chelsea and others in there.
Oh, there's definitely that opportunity for Spurs and Chelsea and Villa and Newcastle and all them to go and finish in the top four and get Champions League football. Just to wrap things up, you've already described Solanke's goal as a striker's finish. It was the ball in and Sarr's head flick on, which was crucial. He was onside Solanke and he finishes it. So on the whole, you've said that Spurs will be pretty content with the start to the season. Let's briefly look at it a little bit more in depth. The Leicester game. I mean, goodness me. They should have scored more than 3 today.
Yes.
They should have scored 5 or 6 at half-time in the Leicester game. Then they lost at Newcastle, right? And
should have won that. They were the better
dominated. 1-0 at home to Arsenal. Okay. Beat Brentford, went a goal down, and then we saw, okay, well, fine. They won by 3 goals to 1. And then Everton.
Hold on. Let me just add. Lose to Arsenal, but dominate possession, dominate shots, dominate and dominate every single statistic. Now, Arsenal fans may be a little aggrieved that I made that point, but we're talking about Spurs. And again, I think what cost them early in the season is their taking of chances. What might have cost them today, but they eventually they got it over the line.
Manchester United. We spoke Friday about them. 5 games, 5 goals for, 5 goals against. Where does this leave them? Where does it leave the board with any decisions that they have to make? It's not the final nail in the coffin, because you've already said it's when and not if. But this can't continue much longer. They can't even score.
This can't continue, and I'm not sure where you're turning, or more to the point, who you turn to. I saw a report a couple of weeks linking Allegri with the Manchester United job, as he's available, but is he?
He doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, though, does he?
I was about to say, is he the kind of manager you bring in or associate with Manchester United and the type of football that their fans expect at their best? Maybe not. Maybe he's.
Would you take Graham? By the way, would you take Graham Potter right now if they decide? Would you take him this week? If you were a Man United fan.
That's a good question. I may, I may. Listen, I'll be honest. I thought Pochettino would have been a good choice last May, but again, Manchester United,
they won the FA Cup final.
Win the FA Cup, which as I described earlier, was papering over the cracks. But I thought, when we were talking about it then, I said, nah, he can't. There's nothing from Ten Hag to convince me to keep him. Pochettino all of a sudden becomes available. I thought that would have been a good get for them. I didn't expect Chelsea to sign Pochettino. I didn't expect the US men's national team to sign Pochettino. That would have been a good get. The long time kind of name that's been associated with that job is Gareth Southgate. I'm surprised, I'm not hearing or seeing more of him, even as in terms of speculation. So we'll see. I think Manchester United's kind of newly structured board has a lot to think about. They've got some of the decisions so far very wrong, in my opinion. And the longer it continues, the worse it gets.
It's kind of summed up by something our colleague Rob Dawson said on ESPN FC last week when Joshua Zirkzee was signed. He basically said, "Look, I'm here to get success, but I'm not an out-and-out goal scorer, and that's what Manchester United need right now. Whether it's him, whether it's Højlund, whether it's Rashford, you need to find someone who's going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. They'll be without Bruno Fernandes now after his red card today. It went from bad to worse for United, but the headline might be about Erik ten Hag and United, but it should be about Spurs." 3 goals and 3 points and a fabulous away day at Old Trafford. Bye for now.